Hi, Caleb with Brownells here. Today we're going to be covering a very common misconception that we get quite a bit of calls about on the tech line, and that is whether or not it is okay to dry fire your firearm. Now, I'll start off with these older rimfires. For example, you have your Mossberg 151 MB here, and then you also have this wonderful high standard HDM, and then you have your Ruger Mark series right here. Now, if you have an older firearm like these two here, it is not a good idea to dry fire them, and here's why. So the firing pin on these firearms is made out of a harder material than the chamber, or the barrel itself, and that's done on purpose. So whenever your firing pin on a rimfire firearm strikes the rim of the cartridge, it hits the rim, and that brass rim is nice and soft. So that's going to absorb the blow of that firing pin. But if you're dry firing it, that firing pin is just going to be slamming into the edge of the chamber. And when it does that, since it's a harder material, it's actually going to be peening the edge of that chamber, and that's going to lead to some failure to extracts, failure to feeds, different issues like that. So that's why it's not recommended, because you're going to probably cause permanent damage to that firearm. Now, with that being said, moving on to some of your more modern rimfires, such as this Ruger Mark series here, or your 1022s, if you're talking about rifles, or a lot of your other major brands, those have a built-in firing pin stop in the bolt, so it won't physically let the tip of that firing pin slam into the edge of the chamber. It'll stop it right before that. So those are okay to dry fire. Now, I will say this. Some modern manufacturer rimfires are still not okay to dry fire. So when it comes to those, I recommend taking a look at the owner's manual or contacting the manufacturer, and they'll be able to let you know on those. Moving on to our Centerfire firearms, such as this AR-15 here. These, your AKs, your shotguns, whether it be for military applications, hunting applications, you can dry fire those. That's not an issue, because being centerfire, the firing pin is going to be contacting the primer, which is located in the center of the cartridge. So with that being said, when there's no cartridge, the firing pin is just going to go into an empty chamber, and that's perfectly okay. There's nothing for it to come in contact with. So with that being said, same thing applies for your handguns. Handguns, centerfire, same exact concept. So you can sit in front of the TV, watching John Wick or Mandalorian, any of that stuff, and practice your quick draws on the TV and dry fire, and that's perfectly okay. Just make sure your firearm's unloaded. Another thing I want to mention is going to be revolvers. Now, same thing applies for some of your older rimfire revolvers. You don't want to dry fire those, and some of your current production ones as well. Now, going back a bit, some of your older Colts specifically, I don't recommend dry firing those. The firing pin on those is integral to the hammer, so there's no reason to put unnecessary stress on those firing pins and then end up snapping one, because those hammer assemblies themselves are pretty hard to find, almost impossible. If you do end up breaking one of those hammers, you're going to have to pay a gunsmith a pretty penny to fix it. Now, a solution to being able to dry fire guns that aren't safe to dry fire is going to be snap caps. Now, snap caps are made out of these solid aluminum bodies here. It's a nice soft aluminum, and with these, you'll notice here that they have a polymer insert where the primer goes. These are highly recommended if you have any reservations about dry firing your firearm, especially those older Colt revolvers. But with that being said, you have these for rimfires as well. Now, if you'll notice, they have these nice big aluminum rims on them, same dimensions as your standard rimfire cartridge, but they're made out of a nice soft aluminum, which means when your firing pin hits it, it's not going to damage your firing pin, and it's going to prevent that firing pin from going into the side of your chamber. So these are highly recommended on some of these older 22s if you want to dry fire them. With that being said, if you have any questions about what firearm it's safe or not safe to dry fire, please feel free to give us a call on the tech line or leave us a comment below. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.